Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of my research, which I recently conducted, was Lone-Wolf Terrorism phenomenon, its origins. I will try to explain where does it come from and on which basis it appears, and what might be the possible solutions for this phenomenon. Well, first, we might need to understand in general what is this lone wolf terrorism means. In general, there is no single profile of terrorism, but lone wolf phenomenon actually created a new profile. It is also a new tactic of terror. First, lone wolf terrorism, terrorists always work alone. The only cases when the attackers were few is because actually they were brothers. The bombing of the Boston Marathon in 2013 was committed by the Tsarnaev brothers. The Charlie Hebdo attack was committed by Kouachi brothers, and the Stade de France and Bataclan attacks in France in 2015 were also carried out by Abdasalem brothers. So it's an important point. The second thing is that lone wolf terrorists actually might not know that he is actually a lone wolf terrorist few hours before the actual attack. They always influenced by outside stimulation, but not always physically. I mean, they usually do not contact with any terroristic organizations. This is why they actually called lone wolves, because they work usually alone. All lone wolf terrorists, one way or another, get inspired and are under influence. But this influence can be wide, from radical Islam to personal psychological disorders. Now, in this study, the discussion is only about Islamic lone wolf terrorism, despite the fact that some other terrorists are actually also, which executed by lone wolves, are also included in the lone wolf pattern. For example, Andreas Breivik is also considered a lone wolf, but he's not an Islamic terrorist. So, a brief objectives of terrorism can be divided into several categories. First, there are terrorist attacks against citizens. For example, train bombing in Madrid, in London, or Beslan school bombing in Russia. They were targeted against citizens. Terrorist attacks against officials. For example, the murder of the Israeli ambassador in 1982, or the US ambassador in Libya in 2012. These were targeted against official people. So one person was murdered, but it was a great effect all over the world. Terrorist attacks against symbols. 9/11, the Nice attack in France in 2016. These were targets because they were highly symbolic. And terrorist attacks against military personnel. US ship bombing in Yemen in 2000. But the lone wolf terrorism seems to combine all these categories into one. In order to understand this phenomenon, in my research I've tried to reveal all possible reasons for this Islamic radical phenomenon by extracting all possible reasons for these attacks committed by lone wolves. Well, first, historically, we should understand in which struggles actually Islam is involved. Historically, struggle can be divided into 4 levels. Inter-tribe struggle between different Islamic tribes and clans, Islamic inter-religion struggle, interstate struggle for the position of who will lead all the Muslims in future, and struggle with other civilizations, other religions, and other cultures. Well, the first level is the inter-clan struggle. This is how basically a tribe, a Muslim tribe looks like. It starts with the family, Hamula, then it's extended family, Hans, then it's a house, Beit or Ushra, then it's a clan, Fuk or the Ila, and the tribe is actually Kabila. This is how basically a Muslim tribe looks like. And during the history, there were huge tribes in Saudi Arabia, for example, big tribes in Iraq, and there is a huge Bedouin tribes, and all the history, they were fighting each other. The history goes back like a few thousand years. So this is one struggle in which Muslims actually highly involved. But this is inside struggle. It's not directed outside the Islamic world. Now the second level is the struggle between Islamic branches and school. The Sunni, Sufi, Salafi, Shi'i, Alawi, Zaidi, and many others. They are also historically been struggling with each other. But this is also inside struggle. It's not directed outside. The third level is the struggle between the Islamic states for the leading position in Islam, who will be the leaders of the whole Muslims. After the First World War, the Ottoman Empire fell. Then we had the Second World War, after which colonialism also had fallen. And in different periods of history, different Islamic states stepped forward to this position. Iran, Egypt, Syria, Libya, Saudi, every Arab country actually promoted their own project by trying to unite all other Muslim countries around itself. It was named in different names like Pan-Arabism, a Great Assyria, Arab Islamic Republic, Arab Federation, Arab League. Different names, but more or less for the same target, to unite all Muslims around one country that will lead them further. Now the first level, the fourth level, is the confrontation of Islamic civilization with other civilization, or as it is called today, other worlds. And now this is the only struggle when it's actually directed outside the Muslim world. Probably, I think Samuel Huntington was actually right when he wrote his work about the war of civilizations. So therefore, I define this as a basis for the lone wolf terrorism phenomenon. And why do I think so? Because the interstate struggle is not relevant for the West. The inter-religion struggle within Islam and inter-tribe struggle are also not relevant for the West. It is not relevant for Europe, and it is not relevant for United States or Russia or any other country. And why do I think so? For example, on 18th of September 2016, before stabbing his victims with a knife in a mall in United States, in New York, this lone wolf was asking, "Are you a Muslim?" He wasn't asking whether you're Sunni or Shi'i. He was asking people, "Are you Muslims?" And he stabbed the people who were not Muslims. In Bangladesh massacre in July 2016, the terrorists were asking hostages to recite a passage from a Quran, the holy book of Islam, without asking for a specific version, whether it was a Zaidi or Shi'i or Sunni Quran. They were just asking to cite a passage. So they killed people just because they were not Muslims. Politics did not have anything to do with it whatsoever. Next, I extracted all the existing classification of the causes of Islamic terrorism. There are four causes: the land, foreign intervention into Arab country, separatism or nationalism, and the fight with the infidels, the kafirs, the people which are not Muslims. Let's start from the land. As a good example, Israeli-Palestinian conflict can be explained. But there are opinions that Palestinians fight for the land. But in 2005, the Israeli Prime Minister, Ariel Sharon, actually tried to show everybody that this is not correct. And he showed that this is not about the land when he unilaterally disengaged from the Gaza Strip, if you remember. Since then, Palestinians actually attacked Israel 3 times. So it actually did not solve the problem, it even extended the problem. So it's not about the land. The second reason is fight against foreign intervention. The 9/11 attacks, the 2004 Madrid bombing, and 2005 London bombing, and 2002 Moscow terrorist attacks, they can come as an example. Each and every of these states actually were in a coalition intervening into some Arab country, like it was in the intervention into Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. So these terrorist attacks might explain this. Now, the fighting for separatism and nationalism, here again, Israeli-Palestinian conflict can come as an example. So what we have left is the fourth cause, all the fight with the infidels, what the Muslim calls, they call people kafirs, which are not Muslim. So everyone who is not a Muslim, this is what we left for the fourth reason. So the hatred for the infidels, they actually again here come as a reason for the Lone-Wolf attacks. Now the only possible reason for the recent terrorist attacks in Europe is, as I said, this is the last cause. In my previous explanations, we came again to the same motive, fighting everyone who is not Muslim. Well, the reason are easily explained, because Europe can hardly be called a Muslim land, one. Foreign intervention, that could be a reason, but the fact that most of the lone wolves never been in the Middle East, never lived there. Most of them were even born in Europe. This is partly excludes this reason. And nationalism and separatism are also not relevant for this case because there is no one to be separated from in Europe or United States. So what we have left is again a fight against other civilization, other religion, and other people who infidels, who are not Muslims. It is the last level of Islamic struggle between Islam and other worlds. The definition is now which world are you belong to, which civilization. But on my next slide, I will actually explain to you, I will show you that even this is not the main reason for the Lone-Wolf attacks. Let me explain you myself. How come the same lone wolf phenomenon happening in different countries where the motives for Islamic terrorism are different? In United States, Israel, Europe and Russia, the motives for Islamic terrorism are different, but we see that there is the same pattern of terrorism, the lone wolf terrorism. During my research, I investigated every single lone wolf attack which happened for the last 4 years, and these are the conclusions that I came to. Omar Abdul Hamid, which shot people in February 2015 in Copenhagen, was a criminal. He became radicalized in prison, where he served more than 3 convictions for crime which was not connected with Islam. Frenchman Yassine Sahli, on June 26 in Lyon, killed his supervisor in an ISIS-inspired attack. Later, he committed suicide in prison cell. While suicide and self-mutilation are sins by Quran, they are not allowed. They are strictly forbidden. Why would she do that? Why would he do that? Was he mentally stable? This is a very important question. Mehdi Nomaushi, on 24 of May 2014, opened fire a Jewish museum in Belgium, in Brussels, killing 4 people. Before the attack, he already had a long criminal history, including arrests for armed robbery, vehicle theft, and vandalism. Mohamed Merah, which in Toulouse, in Montauban shootings in 2011 killed 4 French soldiers, Jewish rabbi, and 3 other children, was later diagnosed with bipolar narcissism psychological disorder. He was a polar introvert with split of personality. Arkan Çetin, a Turkey-born American, the gunman which shot 5 people in the shopping mall in Washington, D.C. in 2016, telling that he was from ISIS. A year before the attack, he was ordered by a judge to receive a mental health treatment. And after attempting suicide, he was involuntarily committed to a mental hospital. In 24 of April 2017, a British student was murdered by a Palestinian in Jerusalem train. Recently, a few months ago. He was mentally ill and a year before the attack tried to commit suicide. Now, after this attack, an Israeli intelligence officer stated, I'm quoting, "This is another event of personal or moral frustration and mental illness, from which, while trying to find an asylum to their personal problems by committing a lone wolf attack in the name of Islamic motives." In 22 of July, a shooter from a Munich Olympia shopping mall at McDonald's, if you remember, in McDonald's cafe, was later diagnosed with the running amok mental disorder syndrome. It's a very severe syndrome, psychological disorder. Unfortunately, this list can go on further. Now, you know, just a few weeks before this conference, when I was preparing this material, on 2nd of May in Jerusalem, please listen carefully, a Jewish Israeli staged what looked like a terrorist lone wolf attack by attacking an IDF soldier with a knife, by hoping to be shot and killed, which unfortunately happened. He was later diagnosed as a psychologically unstable individuum, and he wanted actually to commit suicide. He wasn't even a Muslim. So, in conclusion, these individuals can be classified as country natives, descendants of immigrants, criminals and radicals, covering their deeds under the ideology of radical Islam. They have nothing to do with the true Islam, actually. Romantists, adventurers, passion pursuing individuals, disappointed refugees, frustrated, mentally ill, psychologically unstable, suicidal, and violence-compulsive individuals. Well, the conclusion is that most of lone wolf terrorism attacks are a result not of radicalization of Islam, but the other way around, Islamization of radicalism. Well, Edwin Becker, a leading scholar in anti-terrorism, stated in his wide research, I'm citating, "They are often from the lower strata of society, and many of them have a criminal record." Now, Oliver Roy, one of the leading French experts in Islamic studies, argues that the current wave of terrorism in Europe is, I'm quoting, "the result of Islamization of radicalism, whereby a minority of nihilistic youth adopt Islamic jihad as a cover for socio-economic frustration, and sometimes even for mental disorders, and stage violent activities under the guise of Salafi jihadism." Bruce Hoffman, in his comprehensive work Inside Terrorism called, he noticed that Lone Wolf Act comes as a deep dissatisfaction from the system in which they actually live. Today, Lone Wolf Terrorism is committing in the sake of the violence itself, no true ideology whatsoever. Therefore, the problem is much more comprehensive than just political. And the solution for this specific phenomenon must be combined between political, social, and psychological sciences together. It's not just a political problem or a radical Muslim problem, radical Islam. We have to combine these three kinds of sciences together to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, that was very interesting. So, now we have time for a few questions. But after that, we will go and have lunch. So, I'm just kind of asking you to keep your questions brief and short and very concise. That's all.
I would like to investigate the presentation yesterday about the tactic of targeting leaders and radical organizations. If you compare Hezbollah and Hamas, given what on the front, Hamas have lost so many leaders inside of Hezbollah, so many more in the last 10 years. Do you think, I mean, the counter-terrorism warfare, the way we deal with terrorism, do you think it influences this kind of behavior, like if we target organizations as a structure, then we have more lone wolves?
A good question, but first, of course, it has some kind of connection with the Palestinian lone wolf terrorism inside Israel. But Hamas is a terrorist organization, and unfortunately, when they try to commit a terrorist attack, it's much more severe. There are suicide bombers and stuff, but because Israel cannot solve this problem with Palestinians, this is what actually produced in Israel this lone wolf phenomenon. Because there are among Palestinian lone wolf terrorists are old people, young people, girls, women, boys, grown men, and they all commit these lone wolf attacks. In most of these attacks, they are being killed because they attack IDF soldiers. And all this coming from the frustration of this political situation, because neither Israel nor the Hamas or the Palestinian Authority can solve this problem. So they live in a lot of stress. And this is what produces this phenomenon. They try to attack because I think they are frustrated and they don't see any other way. They have a lot of social problems inside the Palestinian autonomy.
But in comparison to Hezbollah, they've had a long front line, no attacks, no serious attacks, and for 10 years now, for more than 10 years, since 2006. What's the difference? What is the difference with Hezbollah?
Yes, there are a huge difference. Hezbollah is on the north of Israel and Hamas is on the south. Now, on the north of Israel, where are the Golan Heights, there were no single lone wolf attack because it's a border between two states, between Israel and Lebanon. So the second reason is because Hezbollah now is like almost a highly sophisticated military organization. They have so much weapon. They have actually a small army, tanks and rockets. So Israel considers them as a strategic threat. Israel also already was involved in 2 wars with Hezbollah. So there are no, actually, this phenomenon, the lone wolf phenomenon, does not exist within this Hezbollah organization because they are much more militarized than now in Palestine, on south of Israel. Palestinians live really close to Israelis. There are places where are almost no border. You just pass the IDF soldiers, and if you have a license, you can go for work. They go to Israel for work, and in the evening they go back to home. So this is why it actually produced this lone wolf phenomenon, because they also easily can attack Israelis inside Israel. But Hezbollah fighters cannot cross the border because it's much more militarized area.
Thanks for your presentation. I have one short question. Can you pull up the slide about motivation for lone wolf attack again?
Motivation?
Yeah, you had a slide about motivations. And I had a question because you said so the Clash of Civilizations is the main resource, but you gave foreign intervention as a different kind as a normal motive. That's exactly what I meant. So you said foreign intervention is different from the idea of clash, but as far as I understand it, there is belief that there's a feedback loop, that you have people who see foreign intervention in Muslim lands or predominantly Muslim lands, and they see the attacks, they see the suffering, they see the victims, and then they radicalize and say that we are in a war with each other, even though they have never lived there. So what's your rationale for taking that out of Clash of Civilizations?
Thank you for your question. If you noticed, when I was going through this specific factor, I said could be. I'm not excluding this reason also, but the most lone wolf attacks were committed by mentally ill individuals. Some of them, this is the message what I was trying to deliver. Some of them actually from many other psychological reasons, like psychological disorders, frustration, and etc. They actually found this foreign intervention as a cause for their lone wolf attack, because if there were no reason, no cause, they would be considered as a simple criminals or suicidal individuals. So this is what these scholars, well-known scholars, are also writing in their books. They say that Islam, unfortunately, became as a reason for people which are actually don't even connected with Islam. You should notice an interesting thing. Most of these attackers never went to mosque. Some of them were not even Muslims. So, but they take the agenda of foreign intervention just to make from this a reason. I attacked because I stepped forward against your intervention. You know, in some European countries there were lone wolf attacks, but these countries are not even in the anti-ISIS alliance. So this is the only explanation for that. Any other questions?
Okay, first I'd like to thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
I think it's quite true that's been not very well represented in popular culture, because once an attack is conducted by somebody from the Middle East, everybody says, okay, they're radicalized, that's it. And while you were listing your examples, I kept thinking about the massive shootings in the US done by white Americans. And I wanted to ask, are you aware of any research done comparing the two?
White American terrorism against it's racism. Yes, the interesting point is that white American terrorists do not commit lone wolf suicide attacks. There is a long history of white. We can even take Andreas Breivik as an example. He was a white rightist. He wasn't racist, but he had another agenda. But first, he did not try to commit suicide. He is alive, and he is now sentenced for a life sentence, or 20 years now. And second, he planned his attack. I read almost everything about him. He planned his attack for so long time, like few years, he even traveled around Europe trying to connect with people and to buy explosives and to buy weapons. So it was it is a strange individual who was obsessed with his country's politics, but he wasn't he did not try commit suicide. His attack was so well planned that actually he stayed alive after unfortunately killing a lot of people. So it was a lone wolf attack, but he was not a mentally ill person.
I wasn't talking particularly about racist attacks, but about, for example, school shootings. Somebody who's going and shooting in at school, etc.
Well, this is a phenomenon which characterized only in the United States for few reasons. First, about American policy of carrying weapons. Weapons are actually everywhere. So what are these kids doing? Why are they shooting in schools? They actually steal the weapon from their parents. They are not allowed to carry it, but they take. But every house in the United States have a weapon. They take the weapon of their parents or their older brothers or something. They go and they shoot their classmates. Actually, today, the science, anti-terrorism science, there is a huge argument whether it was a lone wolf attack or not. So many well-known scholars cannot answer this question. But as I noticed, I was talking about a lone wolf attack which was considered as Islamic, but these attacks are not Islamic. Then
I was asking about comparisons only, if that has been done.
so my answer is the reason why these kids are committing these attacks. It's not because this is not because they're Islamic or because the foreign intervention or because the argument about land or inter-religion struggle. They just go and shoot for some other reasons which are now investigated.
You also mentioned mental instability as a possible reason, and why shootings you can also list mental instabilities and psychological disorders.
Are you asking me or are you telling me? Okay.
I hate this question, but we have to break up now. The discussion, unfortunately, is very fruitful, but we have a reservation at lunch at Basis Freud, and everybody's free to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you for the very good presentation.